So the Dreamhack qualifiers have ended this weekend, and basically we know everyone and anyone that is going towards the $2 million Saudi LAN. Now let's go through what exactly happened in the Dreamhacks, who's qualified, which players are invited, the prize pool format, and everything else that you need to know going into the LAN on July 6th. Starting off with the qualified players and teams. So there were 3 different qualifiers for the Saudi Arabia LAN. It started off in San Diego, then we had a qualifier in Dallas, and then a qualifier in Jönköping, Sweden. And in those qualifiers, basically 10 players in each tournament made it through and qualified to the $2 million LAN. In terms of the players that have qualified from San Diego, we're starting off with Quanti and Threats, who won Dreamhack San Diego. After that is Ages in Canada, Flugen, Opt, Vortexus, Axforce, Alex and Sons, which are the only OC players to have qualified to the Gamers8 LAN, Robin and Walks, Trashy and Pump, Moo and Tax, Source and Natch, and then Muzz and Bully. Going over towards Dreamhack Dallas, that one was won, of course, by Malibu and Thomas HD. And then we had Bevis and Pablo Ringu, Sizzlucky and Degen, Vert and Quinn, Except and Dubs, Baka Pars, Kika and Kenzo, Iomzo and Paper, Reciprocal and Casca, and then Kami and Yapko. And then finally Sweden, which happened yesterday, was won by Malibu and Thomas yet again, which means that they forfeit their spot for Saudi Arabia to another team. So the teams that are qualified from that are Anas and Pink, Blaha and Mixon, Verskon and Ziandi, Blake and Cease, Estark and Gentle, which is the only Middle East team to have qualified from any of the Dreamhacks, Anlex and Nikov, Venom and Queasy, Carmi and Vanyak, Blaster and Noah, and then Bad Cyper and X-Squeeze. So, in terms of distribution of players from every single region going towards Saudi Arabia, we have 13 EU duos, 15 NA duos, an OCE duo, and then 1 Middle East duo that has qualified from the open qualifiers. Essentially, that is of course only 30 duos in total that are basically qualified towards Saudi Arabia, which means that we have another 14 spots left to go in terms of teams that need to make it through to Saudi in order to fill up the 88 players in total as they specified on the website. And more than likely, those invite places are going to a few people that we already know, we saw on Twitter, and people that we have to guess whether or not they're qualified. But let's be honest, it's a little bit obvious. So more than likely they're going to be inviting the previous winners of the Saudi Arabia LAN. So more than likely Pink and Anas got invited, but they also qualified, which means that there's another spot left open here possibly for other teams to make it through. Perhaps 11th place in the Sweden qualifier, which was Zmax and Hyrax, which were console players who qualified to the Zero Build tournament. So Pink and Nas were definitely invited because they were previous winners. Epica and Malibuka were also invited, but obviously they aren't playing together because Malibuka is playing with Thomas HD, which means that Epic World is able to invite one more player. And judging from Twitter, it says that he's basically going to be inviting Acorn. So it's going to be Epic World and Acorn playing together over in Saudi Arabia for that $2 million LAN. On top of that, we have players like Amar, obviously one of the biggest streamers in Germany that have been invited, who's also looking for a duo, more than likely going to be playing with someone like Reason or someone like Janice or someone like Vico going into that LAN. Of course, Mr. Savage will always get invited as well, being one of the top EU streamers, and definitely will be accepting his invite, I believe so as well. On top of that, there has been some rumors going around, and what is pretty interesting is Booga. Because Booga actually did qualify from Dallas, but his name wasn't mentioned on the leaderboard when it comes to qualified players going towards Saudi Arabia. So, more than likely, that means that Booga was probably invited, right? Or that he got an invite and didn't accept it. And that, for me, I think is the more likely situation going on here. Because essentially, similarly to Pink and Anas, they were invited, right? Pink said on Twitter that he's already done his paperwork, he's already got everything set up to go towards Saudi, but his name was still mentioned on teams that qualified towards Saudi Arabia. So I think if you were invited, you forfeit your qualification spot rather than your invite spot. So it seems like Booga probably doesn't want to go towards that tournament for one reason or another, similarly to last year where we also was invited but also declined an invite to go. So whether or not this is something to do with just him not wanting to go or not enjoying Zero Build, who knows, but seems like Booga probably won't be going towards the LAN unless something changes in the future. However, at the same time, we did hear other things like Muzz is getting snaked by Booga because Booga's playing with Threats, even though like Quanti being snaked by threats because he's going to go play with Booga. It's all very confusing, and it doesn't make much sense in terms of how the qualification spots and invite spots work there. Furthermore, we obviously going to have players from Falcon Esports because that's a Saudi-backed organization. So players like Tayson will definitely get invited. They do have a whole Middle East roster of 5, which includes Yonks, FHD, NM7, and Spy, and of course Gentle, but Gentle qualified through Sweden, so more than likely Dorforce players will probably be invited as well. So that in total has Clicks, Epic Will, Amar, Mr. Savage, Tayson, and then those 4 players, which makes 9, and then we're looking for 5 more players to invite then into the future going into that tournament. In terms of the actual tournament specifications, it starts July 6th all the way towards July 9th. It is a 0-vote tournament, oh well, but it is to $2 million prize pool. In terms of start times and when you can watch it, starts 6 p.m. Amsterdam time. We're basing it off what happened last year, so 6 p.m. Amsterdam time. And remember, if you watch that tournament either on my stream or on the main stream, then you saw that this tournament lasted about 6 hours in total. So strap in, get yourself some snacks, so that's going to be a long tournament, because they obviously play one game, they have interviews, they have content in between, which is always a fun part of LANs in order to watch it. Last but not least, the prize pool, which a lot of you guys are probably very interested in. What does the prize pool look like? So here is the prize pool. First place will get themselves $500,000. Now that is obviously going to be split in 2, so $250,000 for first place per person. Second, $150,000. Third, $100,000 per person, $200,000 in total. 150k, 100k, 80k, 60k, 50k, 40k, and then 30k for just getting top 10. And the minimum amount that you're getting just for attending the LAN will be $10,000, aka $5,000 per person, guaranteed just for going over there. So not a bad holiday. You get yourself a free flight, you get yourself free accommodation, hotels, food, whatever, and you get yourself $5,000 just for attending this Fortnite LAN. So not a bad tournament to go to here for the players, being guaranteed that absurd amount of money. Furthermore, there is more things attributed as well. More than likely, there's going to be another MVP vote or MVP of the tournament, like Malibuka got randomly last year. I believe he got $150,000 just for being the best player. So, you know, knowing this tournament and knowing the exuberant amount of money that's spent on this tournament, they're probably going to be giving out a crazy amount of random prizes to players. Because more than likely, this tournament probably would have been a lot bigger than it actually is, right? It's a $2 million LAN, which is already massive, but I've heard rumors and rumblings all around the scene that this tournament was meant to be $10 million, or something to that extent. So, obviously, there's a lot of extra budget probably laying around here that the tournament was going to have. So maybe they'll throw in some extra prizes for other MVPs, best clip, or whatever. You never know, right? And obviously the question you guys are going to ask is, why did it not become a $10 million tournament? Well, that's probably based on Epic Games having the restriction of, you know, determining what tournaments people can host within Fortnite. And I'm assuming that Epic probably shot down the idea of having a $10 million LAN in Saudi Arabia, probably because they're hosting their own $4 million LAN in Copenhagen sometime around October, and being overshadowed by a third-party organization in your own game is probably a little bit embarrassing. So they probably had to cut down their prize pool so that the major LAN championship in Copenhagen is still more hyped than this random third-party tournament in Saudi Arabia, right? So they probably shot that down very quickly, and that might be a good thing for some of the players, because, you know, maybe get yourself some extra cash in other categories of this tournament. The last thing that I want to talk about very quickly was the qualification over in Sweden and the headache that it was for all of the players. So those of you that are unaware, you probably saw it going all around social media. There was a hacker that played the tournament. Now, the hacker wasn't actually at Sweden. He was playing from home. He was interviewed on stream. It was like a fever dream. Archie interviewed him on stream. They talked to each other. They talked about what the discussion was, blah blah, whatever. Doesn't really matter too much. Don't want to give it too much attention in that sense. But the more interesting thing is that the person that was giving this hacker the key was at the LAN, and interesting enough was sussed out by the actual cheater who was paying him money to get the leaked keys. Just getting him like $50 or something for the key every single time. And essentially the leaker was found. The cheater told on the leaker basically. It told everyone where he was sitting. He was swarmed by everybody. Dreamhack staff had to get involved, and that player was ultimately escorted out. And then the rest of the tournament was hacker free. But it's a bit of a mess, and goes to show that there needs to be a massive discussion talking about how Epic Games can improve these third-party tournaments and get themselves involved. This is the second instance now of a major tournament being disrupted by cheaters. We of course had the Red Bull LAN, which was great in terms of the LAN experience, but the qualifiers online were just overrun by cheaters because the team organizing it had no idea what the hell they were doing, and Epic doesn't seem to really care about these tournaments or any of the drama and news that comes alongside it, even though it's a massive embarrassment in that sense. But it is what it is. Hopefully for future tournaments, especially for Saudi, we can have the tournament be run in game. Also because the meta and obviously pubs are a completely different meta to the actual zero mode. So hopefully we'll see that in the future, because we can't keep going like this. There's only a limited amount of sponsors in the world that want to host tournaments within Fortnite. And if they drop out, you know, a massive sponsor like Red Bull, for example, then it's not a great look for the game itself. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.